And working the magic in the background is our very own Stig, Mr. Sam Boozin. So Pete, Watkins Glen, very popular track. Cup configuration, probably the simplest maybe configuration, apart from the bus stop. What are you expecting from tonight?
Well, draft's going to be a massively important piece of this race. Getting onto that back straight that heads towards the bus stop. There's going to be a lot of overtaking through there. Some inside lines getting taken as they come down the hill. Cup is the faster version of the track. It's got a number of different lines you can take through a lot of different corners, so we're going to experience some good overtaking, I think.
Yeah, and obviously we both mentioned the bus stop there. So a big heavy car that doesn't like to brake at the end of a big fast straight and a heavy braking zone, and then a double direction change of the car. Now that's always a tricky part of the track for drivers to navigate.
It is. So the tyres will have cooled by the time they get to the bus stop, and unloading and reloading the tyres, going right, left, and then right again, and holding that right-hand turn is going to put a lot of pressure on the left-hand tyres. So having your camber set correctly, not generating too much heat as you go into that corner, very important. And then towards that S bend, or the double S that comes after it, and onto the start-finish straight. They're all very important turns.
Yeah, they certainly are. Now, with this track, it's not a difficult track to learn, but it seems to be one of those tracks where you do, or can in some series anyway. I'm not saying our series is any different, but you can get a lot of mistakes. Is that a bit of overconfidence from the drivers because the track is quite a simple layout?
I'm convinced that that's the case a lot of the time. Um, we often push very hard on the tracks that we think that we know the best. With simple layouts, you get the same effect. So yeah, I agree with that entirely.
Well, that makes a change. Me and you agreeing right from the start.
Certainly does. Yeah.
So we're into the qualifying session now. Currently, George McClay is sitting on the pole position, a thousandth of a second quicker than Johnny Brandon. Um, we've got some big hitters in today. We haven't got a massive field as usual with the sprint series, but a lot of the big hitters are there. Um, Putting a bit of pressure on you. First race with qualifying, and then two full reverse races, in fact. Without having the large grid, you expect the heavy hitters to do well. Do you think there's a possibility to see a triple winner tonight, taking all three races?
I think it's possible, but I don't think it's likely. I think we proved last time that with the sprint series, you don't need a big field to have lots and lots of racing all the way down that list of contenders. Tony, Johnny, George, all there to vie for that winning post. I think behind them, there's a few people who could show their nose. Rich Warmingham proved last time he could get to the front very easily and stay there for quite a long time. Generally, though, Johnny, George, Tony will eat people up, especially on the reverse grids. They'll start towards the back generally because they'll have won the first race. They'll creep very carefully, hopefully, for all the other drivers towards the front and start picking people off. There'll be some dramatic moves if they don't get to the front fast enough, of course.
Yeah, but with Watkins Glen, obviously there are quite a few overtaking opportunities, and it's not really one of those tracks that we've seen in the past where, no disrespect, but one of the slower guys gets the reverse grid pole, and then just by car placement, they sometimes, occasionally hang on for the win, but usually do pretty well. I'm not saying that Harold is slow, but I remember a couple of races with Harold where he was just, putting his car in exactly the right places and nobody could get past him. But I think with Watkins Glen, that gets taken away because of the passing opportunities.
As long as you get the launch out of the corners that precede the long straights, nobody can block you forever. That straight's there. On this track, the straights are very long, particularly that back straight coming around the carousel turn that leads towards the start-finish complex. That you're not going to be able to block that. It's not possible. If you get a good run, and Tony and Johnny and George will get those runs behind people, use the slipstream, they'll take them before the next turns. So in terms of that, car placement is key on certain places, but you can't go blocking in braking zones or out of corners where it's going to be obvious that you're doing it. So, and the guys that we have in the league, they're very respectful drivers. They know their places. Some of them are moving up in terms of skill, helped by people like Tony, helped by people like Johnny. And for that reason, generally we have quite safe races. Obviously, we've had some controversy in the last few races between Tony and Johnny being a bit forceful with one another or making moves in a way that because they couldn't see the other driver at certain points. So I think we'll get that again today as well.
Yeah, I think with Tony and Johnny, I think it's all part of the show. I think they have their coming together just to give us something to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, and let's hope we carry on with it because it makes good viewing. Let's face it.
Incidentally, for those of you that are missing the podcast, we've had a few weeks off because we've had various people swanning off to various places around the world, Sam included. But we will be back next Sunday with a double header where we will review what went on at Virginia and also what will be going on. And then what went on at Watkins Glen in the main series on next Saturday. So yeah, tune in next Sunday. Usual time, usual place, usual contenders, and we'll see if we can get the Johnny and Tony show cranked up a few notches.
Definitely, and Johnny Brandon's just shown that he can do this track 2/10 faster than everybody else by putting that time in. And I am just going to bow out for a minute because I've key binded with the pitting in trigger. So give me 2 seconds and I'll be back.
I must admit, I did wonder why you kept pitting in, even though
Yeah.
you're sat in the commentary booth. So, yeah, as Pete said, Johnny Brandon currently has taken the pole position. Still a couple of minutes left. He's got a 2/10 lead over Tony Kloosterman. And George McClay is in third with Gary Croft in fourth. So a couple of minutes left. There is time for people to do quicker laps. I did see that George managed a 109 in practice. Now, whether the track conditions were better or whether he got a good tow, I don't know. But nobody's managed to break the 109s yet. I think Johnny's just took a little fraction off of his time.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back now, so that's okay. Yeah, he's just about topped his time, but not by enough, I don't think, to warrant anything to...
Yeah, we've still got Greg Branch. Oh, we had Greg Branch, just as I flicked to him. He managed a spin and is now reversing down the track. Andrew Hoffman still on track. See if he can close the gap to Lane O'Connor ahead of him. Must say these cars do look fantastic with that change of direction through the bus stop.
Yeah, the loading and unloading, you can see in the dynamic of the iRacing physics, so it looks really...
We seem to have lost Pete again. Just while qualifying is finishing off, I'm not sure that anybody's going to change any places. something that is going to get announced tomorrow. For those of you watching the broadcast, you get an early preview of it. When we go to Bathurst this year, we're going to do a retro paint round. So, for those of you that paint cars, or those of you that have painters, pick your favourite paint, get it on your V8, and show them off when we do the endurance race at Bathurst. And I think, Pete, that's just about qualifying over.
Yeah, do you want me to run through the runners and riders?
Well, as you keep buggering off, that's the least you could do, I suppose.
I keep making silly keybinds. Anyway, so in first place will be Johnny Brandon. Next to him on the grid will be Tony Kloosterman. Second row will be George McClay next to Gary Croft. Where's the other half of Team GC this week? Anyway, no Greg Carr. So Harold Stadler and Rich Wormingham make up the next row. Then Greg Branch, Ronald Moons, who did very well with me trying to last out on an endurance race last week. It felt like trying to save fuel, and we both failed. Michael Frost and Lane Connor following that, and then Andrew Hoffman and Barbecue Bill Switzer rounding out the grid.
Okay, so they're gridding up and we're ready to go.
Looks like we're waiting on Tony at the minute. Although I know Tony does wait off the grid until about 45 seconds to go.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we've just lost Greg Branch.
Yeah, that doesn't look good.
No.
I believe Greg Carr could be doing a marathon, training for a marathon, or just generally trying to kill himself by running somewhere.
Right.
Just something that I see in the Facebook chat earlier.
And we are green. Tony and Johnny out together, keeping pace with one another. Somebody in a red car, who's that? Running
That'll
slower.
be Gary Croft, I think, in his retro paint.
Right. Yeah. Johnny leads them through the first few turns. Tony in close company. And this is where, if the cameras are hopefully on the front of the field, this is where that slipstream comes in. So the first time you get a break in the field is the first time that someone will really get disadvantaged. Tony easing off as they turn in.
And somebody took the escape road.
iRacing punishes for that, good and proper.
That was George, I believe.
Right, so
got a massive slowdown now, which is probably going to put him to the back of the field.
And has enabled Johnny to stretch his legs. Harold coming up on the back of Tony now. He's going to get a very good slipstream if he can stay at that proximity all the way through these turns and over the start-finish straight. So leading the first lap through is Johnny Brandon, followed by Tony Kloosterman, Harold Stadler, Rich Wormingham, and Gary Croft. That rounds out your top five.
Yeah, so round turn one, and everybody's now heading off up the hill onto the long back straight, and we'll see if we get any dramas into the bus stop on lap two.
Surprisingly, I think everybody's playing it quite calm. This is a sprint race, and I think somebody needs to remind them of that. The closest proximity people are Ronald, Lane, and Michael Frost at the moment. They're all together, although Tony's pulled onto the back bumper of Johnny Brandon. Don't know what Johnny did to lose so much time just through there.
Yeah, you've got George has tagged onto the back of Rich Wormingham. And I think Rich Wormingham is being maybe held up a little bit by Ronald. There could have been a little bit of contact there. Ronald's car twitched. Oh, George. George was going to thread the needle then.
Yeah, and Michael
Frost was off on the left.
Yeah, he's been punished for that one.
Yeah, I think there was some contact there between Ronald Ronald and Rich Warmingham or Lane O'Connor, sorry, because Lane very gentlemanly has let Ronald go again.
Yeah, I was wondering what you were saying about Rich, because he's on the back of the first group. He's in 6th at the minute, I think. Or is that 5th now? It's 5th, isn't it? Because George has moved back. So you can see Tony in that slipstream. He's drawing in Johnny quite quickly, hand over fist. That's obviously how he closed in the last time round as well. And I missed.
Yeah, George is on the back of Ronald now. I don't think this will last very long.
No, he's
and
looking
then
for an
George
inside line there.
catch up.
He'll switch to the new inside for the next turn, and he'll be alongside him, and he'll complete that turn. In fact, he's given that at the last minute. The drivers understand where they sit against other people usually, and it's not worth fighting some.
No, although the top 5 have got quite a gap on George now, so he's got some clear track. So see what he can do now to close that gap. I think it's about 4 seconds at the moment.
That's going to be a big challenge because of the slipstream. I think if we switch the cameras on to Johnny and Tony, the effect of that slipstream will be seen now as they go into that big long back.
So Tony's got his coal trickle paint on.
Yeah, it's quite good actually, isn't it? I quite like that. In fact, Tony seems to get him under braking there. I don't know whether that'll be punished for Tony later on when he gets worn tyres towards the end of the race.
I think Tony Trickle's got quite a good ring to it as well.
It's not an age reference now. He'll kill me for that. Oh, and that's really good. Greg Branch got back in. He's some laps down, I think, but that is good.
Yeah, it's all about seat time.
With this car more than any, you need to make sure you're turning laps regularly.
So the front 2 are stretching slightly from Harold, but he might make that up down the straight again, because I think he's still within a slipstream advantage there.
Yeah, and you've got Tony's now pulling him in. Tony's looking for a tactic. You can tell he's trying to get his proximity just right so that he makes maximum use of that toe on the back straight. I don't think he's quite worked it out yet, but it's only a matter of time, I think.
Is it worth going past, though, this early in the race, knowing that the guy behind you can just draft back up to you again and then take you on?
It's a really good point, actually. He may well be biding this time and do a last lap push to cut under Johnny. The way he approached the bus stop, though, suggests not, because he was very late on the brakes compared to Johnny. It's almost Johnny pacing it out.
Yeah, Tony looks like he's having little looks, but I'm not sure whether he's doing it wholeheartedly or just it's one of them. Hello, Johnny, I'm here.
Yeah, and then you look at what you've got now, and Johnny's gapped him somewhat after going through the first couple of turns. So maybe Tony might see that and think, well, maybe I do need to be ahead. Maybe I need to be the one that's creating the block. It's all whatever tactic you set yourself at the start when you're in that position, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I remember having a conversation with Johnny. He is quite hard on the tyres, but also drives very well on worn tyres. So, trying to get in Tony's head, do you try and get it done now? And like you say, keep throwing blocks maybe, or even if you think you're faster, trying to pull a gap, or do you treat it like the Indy 500 and ride for 498 miles and then make the overtake in the last 2 miles?
Yeah, totally. I mean, he crawled right up onto Johnny's back bumper before turn 1, and whether he's not got the traction out turn 1, I'm not sure. but he's lost a lot of ground to him already, even this early in the lap. He picks it back up here under brakes, but that's not going to do him any favours when he gets to the end of the race. And if Johnny's better on one tyres than Tony, it's quite possible Tony's thinking, I need to get in front of you and be the blocker.
Yeah, and there's no real overtaking opportunity into that bus stop unless you're alongside. You can't sort of, outbrake somebody on the same line. You're just going to have to slow down to whatever pace they're going through the bus stop.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. The bus stop's one way you need your car almost, your whole bonnet in front of somebody before you can really position your car for the turn. It makes the bus stop a really clunky right-left on the first bit, the first instance of it, and that puts you offline for the carousel. So you got to be very, very confident doing anything through there.
Yeah, you've. It's like you've got to up through those S's. You've got to be right on the back bumper, get the pull from the car in front early on the back straight, pull out, get alongside Zio, and then it's difficult because you can still defend on that inside lane through the bus stop.
Yeah, and I think next time round I'm gonna jump in the cockpit of Tony's car and see if he's lifting as he goes into that last section of the back straight, and see if he's effectively lining Johnny up for a pass later on. So I'll keep watching that. Everybody else
Yeah, and
is
further down the field, the front two are dropping Harold, who's in third, very slowly. Harold is dropping Rich Warmingham. There's a second back to Gary Croft, and then George is slowly getting to Gary, but only fractions of a second every lap. So I'm not sure whether George is going to go any further in this race than where he is now in sixth.
absolutely, and I've been watching the Ronald Moon situation for a while with Lane O'Connor behind him. Lane's all over him at some points on the track, and then drifts right off him again later on. Although saying that, Ronald's gone very, very wide, and Lane's taken advantage of that. I'm just going to jump in
Commentator's
the car with
curse.
Tony. Yeah, totally. Excellent. So he was feathering the gas as he came down the bottom of the carousel. Are you staying with this side? See, that would suggest to me that Tony's measuring his entry points because he wasn't on the gas exactly where he would be normally. He's late apex in the. And he's been closer than that through turn one previously. You could argue there that Tony's not got much front end grip going through the top of the S's before the back.
And that might be what's keeping him behind. If he can't keep with him through the S's, by the time he gets the full effect of the pull from Johnny, he's too close to the bus stop to do anything about it.
And honestly, just watching that, I think I agree with you. I don't think he can get the grip going through the last right hand, the left and right before that back straight, and he loses ground to him. And he's easy on the brakes into the bus stop, which is where I thought he wasn't. So I'll take most of what I said before back.
Yeah, further down the field now that Lane's got past Ronald, he's starting to pull out a little gap. Gary Croft has closed up on Rich Warmingham. There's only about a half a second between the two of them now.
Yeah, everybody's starting to gap again. No particularly close racing further back in the field. I think Tony's just tempting us every so often, getting onto the back of Johnny's bumper. And Johnny's done a great job.
Gary Croft seemed to have quite a bit of understeer through the S's as well. So whether that's a trait of the NQR setup, I don't know.
Yeah, that might just be if they're all using the same setup, they'll all suffer in the same way. And obviously, if Tony's suffering and he's often very good on the tyres, everybody else will suffer worse.
Yeah, I just did a lap on board with Gary just to see how he was driving, and the tyres were really complaining through the S's.
Yeah. What were you saying a second ago, Sam? Ah, okay, excellent. So Rich Warmingham looks like he's caught himself a Harold Stadler. I don't know, it's Gary, isn't it? Gary's deceiving me in that paint scheme. He's got me twice now. So Gary's pulling in Rich Warmingham, not the other. He's got a good slipstream here. And bring him closer, maybe a couple of laps time. He'll be in a position to put a move on Rich.
Yeah,
Aimed at the
then
front.
George has closed the gap to about 2.5 seconds to Gary as well. So I think if Gary does get to Rich, he's going to have to get past him in a hurry. Otherwise, he's going to have George pounding his back doors in.
Oh dear. Yeah, he's going to have to get a rush on for that one. I'm making no comments about your last statement. All right, I'll go and have a look at that. Looks like it was a crash into turn one. And he's gone in probably a bit heavy. Oh no, he's gone fine. And then I think we've all struggled with that one before. So he's come out of the corner. Not all his wheels are loaded fully, and he's gassed it, and the car's turned round on him. Not all his tyres are in contact with the tarmac at the same time. I know I'm very familiar with that bit of wall that he hit.
So Gary seems to make a lot of ground up on Rich Warmingham through the carousel of all places.
That's really weird. Nobody pulls people in at the carousel. It's one speed. You've got one speed to do through it, or slower than that speed.
Yeah,
That's the point.
that's what I was thinking. It was weird because I say Gary seemed. I could be wrong, but Gary seems to understeer through the S's, but the carousel he seems to have better turn than anybody else. So yeah, weird. Perhaps it's just the low speed turn is better than the high speed turn.
Or Rich can't carry speed through it. But generally, like you say, the carousel, it's a one-speed wonder court. And it looks like Johnny has got a solution for Tony here. So Johnny's definitely pulling some time on him. I've not been aware of the gap. I don't know what it was originally, but it's visibly greater.
Yeah, it's about half a second now.
So that's still slipstream territory in this car, isn't it? You get your slipstream up to about 0.8 of a second, or even a second sometimes.
Yeah, maybe even a second, I think.
Just going to have a look a bit further back in the field. There's definitely something going to warm up around Rich Warmingham in one way or another, because he's got Gary right behind him, and George will probably catch him over the course of the next couple of laps.
Yeah, I've been watching this battle for a while from Gary's car, and the pair of them are definitely gaining on Harold. But Gary can't seem to get any closer than about half a second to Rich. But he's still got over a second to George.
Yeah, sorry, I was just saying, when you look at how much time's left, I don't think that's going to be possible for anyone. And I think Tony needs to pull his finger out here if he wants a shot at winning.
Yeah, Johnny's definitely pulling away from him now. Tony's certainly not one that would concede. He's obviously given it everything he's got. But unfortunately, at the moment, it's not enough to do anything about Johnny.
No, and I think George is demonstrating how good he is on worn tyres at the minute. He's very much closing in on the 3 cars in front of him. I just don't think he's got enough time left in the race to make anything.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think he's under a second now. And we got another crash further back in the field. I believe it may have been Mike Frost.
It's an identical crash to Greg. It is as well. But unfortunate for that team, they're not going to get on with turn 1 at all in this.
Okay, Gary's just made a big mistake in the bus stop, and George is now right on his bumper.
He's in there like swimwear now, isn't he? He's going to line him up, possibly coming out of the turn that goes onto the start-finish, because that's what I'd do, and then push him out in turn 1. So let's see what happens.
I mean, that's what I'd do. You'd be in the pits by now.
I'd be in the wall where the other two were. Oh, he's not got the drive out of that corner, so too much heat in his tyres, I think.
Yeah, he's got one more chance.
Oh, stop.
Are we white flag lap yet?
Not sure. Don't think so. There's one. Tony's putting his game face on now. He's reduced that gap significantly from what I can see.
Okay, so Greg's having some computer issues, so he's just asked me if he can start at the back for race 2.
Good that he's starting though.
Yeah, definitely. Did we work out whether this was the last lap or not?
Next one, I reckon. And Tony, he's definitely trying now. He's pulling in Johnny to a point. I just don't think he's got it. I don't think he. Oh, what's Johnny doing? Johnny's trying to break the. That was the last lap. So Johnny wins. Tony Klusterman's second. Harold third. Rich Warmingham fourth. Gary Croft fifth. George McClay sixth. And then coming through, Lane O'Connor will take 7th. Ronald will take 8th. It's a good drive from Ronald. Andrew Hoffman in 9th. And then good old Bill Switzer, just taking the last few turns. He'll be positioned 10th. So a good points score for him.
Yeah, so what did we learn from that race? Obviously, Johnny's quick. We know that. Tony is on pace with him, but can't get past him.
I think that race
Tony
was a rehearsal.
Starting in front of him in the next race, so let's see what happens there.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the rehearsal race. They've proven that they are almost identical, Johnny and Tony, on this track in terms of turning laps. So next race is going to be really.
It'll be very interesting to see which one of those navigates the traffic the best.
Yep, and how forcefully they do that as well.
Yeah, I think, well, personally, not that I'd ever be anywhere near them two, but if I was Johnny, I would be very tempted just to sit behind Tony, let Tony open the doors and follow him through when they're going through, the slower guys, and then take Tony on when there's a bit of space on the track.
Yeah, that'd be a sensible tactic to follow. So let's see what they do in race 2. How long have we got till that?
We will have, it's going to be a 10-minute practice session. It'll take me 5 minutes to set the session up. So join us again, ladies and gents, in about 15 minutes for race 2 of the evening, which is also our first full reverse grid. We will catch you again shortly. And welcome back, everybody, to race 2 of the V8 ESC Sprint Series, brought to you from Watkins Glen Cup Circuit, broadcast by ECA Racing TV. Again, in the booth with me, I have Mr. Pete Bingham. Welcome back.
Welcome, everybody that's just joined. It should be a good Racetech V8 ESC second race. It's going to be very tasty. Make sure you've got your eyes polished because you're not going to know where.
So, grid. We have a full reverse grid from race 1. So, the only different one is Mr. Greg Branch, who's requested starting from the back. So, instead of taking his pole position slot, he'll be starting at the back due to a few computer issues. So, Pete, same again?
Oh, it's a brave man who bets on this one. It really is. Anything could happen here. This is such a fast track, and you've got all the fast guys starting from the back. It's going to be, well, it could be carnage. I'm not going to bet.
Okay, so cars are currently getting ready to grid.
Right, so in order, we've got Michael Frost on pole, Bill Switzer's next to him in second, Andrew Hoffman in third, Ronald Moons in fourth, Lane O'Connor will start in fifth, George McLean sixth, Gary Croft in seventh, Rich Warmingham eighth, Harold Stadler ninth, Tony Klusterman in 10th, and Johnny Brand in 11th, with Greg Branch requesting a start from the back because he's got some technical issues with his rig. We are waiting for Bill by the look of things, and whoever's starting in. Oh no, just
Revs are rising and they're away.
Nope, one of them's away. And he's pulled over, so.
Was a false start, was that from Mike, or has he just pulled out of the way?
I think he may have pulled out of the way for a purpose.
So we've got Mr. Barbecue Switzer in the lead at the moment.
We certainly do. He's gained the advantage there. Hopefully he'll keep his head. Immediately behind him is Ronald Moons. Already looking at opportunities is George McClay behind him. Then Lane, Rich Warmingham showing his nose to Lane right now, and that could get a bit tasty because Tony's in close contention here. And in fact, that was a lovely, lovely move by Rich Warmingham. Bill's getting out of the way by the look of things. Doesn't want anything to do with that. Tony is
intentionally getting out of the way, or
I don't know where to look at the minute. There's just everything going on. Tony's looking on the inside of Lane O'Connor at the moment, and he's done that move now.
Very, very close to contact there.
Very. In fact, he's backed out of that. Lane did actually a really good job of being in the right place there.
We've got Harold Stadler showing us in the pits.
Sorry, we nearly went 3 wide into turn 1, but Lane thought better of it. Bill's a bit twitchy coming out of the corner. Johnny's on his inside, and he's made that pass. Lane's underneath as well. Andrew Hoffman's not having a great day. He's right at the back. Oh, he started from the pits, right? Thanks for that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Harold, but he's made a pit stop, and I've also got Mike Frost in the pits. So
Yeah,
whether he did have an issue at the start, I don't know.
He's done his first lap.
Tony and Johnny currently 4th and 5th, I believe. They're going to need to try and dispatch Rich and Lane. Is it Lane up there? Otherwise, George is going to run away with this.
Michael Frost has now rejoined the race.
Yeah, I've got him showing
clueless.
pits. Interesting to see what happened to Harold.
Yeah, I've not chased that one down. I chased Mike Frost down, and it made me more confused. So we've got George McClay out front at the moment. He's being followed by Ronald Moons, who's keeping pace really well. And there's awful lots of stuff going on between Rich Warmingham and Tony Kloosterman at the minute. Tony's had to back out of that because Rich Warmingham has contact, or netcode, I think that was, if I'm being honest. Johnny Brandon's taken the opportunity to shuffle through there as well. He's right on Tony's 6.
I think Harold might have made a false start and got black flagged for it.
That would make sense. Roger that, Sam. Johnny's making himself very, very known to Tony right now. He was showing his nose to Tony there, and he's lining him up into the last corner. No, he's not. He's staying in tandem.
He's certainly pushing, Johnny.
Yes, very
Wild
much
out
so.
that corner. That was like a 360 sprint car turn.
We know all about that now.
Oh, we certainly do.
The one I'm kind of saluting in silence at the moment is Ronald Moons. Where did this come from? Why is he? You got to ask why is he still in second? There's cars that are usually leagues ahead of him, behind him, and he's doing great pace.
I do honestly believe, and I know I am the founder and only member of the Ronald Moons Appreciation Society, but Ronald is a better driver than we usually give him credit for. He just has a few, shall we call them, senior moments every now and again. But when Ronald's on it, he is certainly on it.
Yeah, he's on it like a car bonnet right now because he's ahead of the majority of the field and doing really good lap times. If he can position his car, he'll keep Tony behind him for a little bit. But I think that back straight is going to be nobody's best friend when it comes to Tony and Johnny this. And in fact, Tony's
just
taking no time.
Lap.
Really? That's interesting.
Bill Switzer coming in the pits as well, so I don't know what happened to Bill.
And he's going very slow. I'll chase that down while you stay live if you like.
Okay, so Tony's managed to get past Ronald, but Johnny's still behind. Don't know how long Ronald will hold up Johnny. Johnny's having a look now. He's not going to do it into the bus stop. This may give Tony a chance to put a little bit of a gap on Johnny.
The Bill Switzer situation, I'm not sure about. He's just garaged his...
Johnny's wildly drifting the corners again, which isn't helping him with his quest to get past Ronald.
No, and Tony's running away at them. I think Tony's sense of urgency was correctly applied.
So George has managed to pull nearly a 4-second gap whilst Tony and Johnny have been fighting to get through. Ooh, close to contact there. Oh,
Go on, Ronald. And he's kept that going. He's kept that going. He's offline, but he's got it. He's done his job. Oh, maybe not.
Yeah, that wasn't really an overtaking position.
Oh dear, that's all.
That's caused carnage.
Johnny's not happy.
No, unfortunately, I think Johnny caused it though.
I'm going to watch it again before I make any judgments.
Yeah, I just say it as I see it. I think coming up through those S's, it's it's not really an overtaking opportunity. The cars do understeer. I think Johnny will probably look back on that and think to himself, if I'd have been a bit patient.
Yeah, there was. I think Johnny has to, at some point, when he's digested all that, realise he was trying to put his car through a gap that was much smaller than his.
Yeah, there's a lot of smokers in the pits. Just heard a comment with Gary and Lane. I don't know if you want to go back and have a look what happened there, Pete.
Gary and Lane, right? I'll have a look. I've got Lane on camera at the minute.
I'm not sure anything did happen. They may have been talking about it might just have been a mess in the track when they came up the S's. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in car with Lane at the moment on a replay. Just about to do the first turn where that's the start of all the naughty driving.
Once the timing screen sorts itself out, I'll let you know where everybody is.
Yeah, Lane did a great job of avoiding the first phase of that crash. He was caught up by flying cars, is the best way to just...
Fair enough. So, out front, we've got George McClay leading Tony Kloosterman by just over 3 seconds, and then there's a massive gap back to, believe it or not, Mr. Greg Branch, who started from the back.
It's a result, isn't it? Avoidance has done him proud there.
Certainly has. Andrew Hoffman up in 4th as well. Ronald in 5th.
I'm going to read these results after the race and wonder what on earth I'm reading. Yep, and then Gary Croft is showing on the timing screens as 9th, but that can't be right. Ronald Moons
no, he is. He's come out of the pits.
Is he laps down? Right. Harold Stadler in 6th. Rich Warmingham in 7th. Michael Frost is circulating in 8th, so that'll be a good result for him.
Yeah, I've got Lane and Johnny in the pits and Bill disconnected, but everybody else is running. Yeah, Harold. I think it was a jump start. He seemed to move before everybody else, and then to pit very early. That's what it looks like. Well, Harold is usually one that'll pop in for an interview at the end of the racing, so we'll make a note of that and we'll ask him. Tony's not really making any headway on George, Pete, which is surprising.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out the Harold situation. Unfortunately, my computer says he starts at lap 3 for whatever reason. I'm just going to get back live with the broadcast as much as I can anyway.
Harold on the back of Ronald.
Right, I'm back in the room. Gary Croft in 9th is out of laps, I think. He's out of sequence, rather, with laps down, because he's behind Andrew Hoffman, who's in 4th currently. Ronald has Harold behind him.
Yeah, it's strange because the timing screen is not showing Gary being laps down.
Alright.
Showing him in 9th, but I'm sure he is a lap down because he had to pit, and Harold is now going for the move on Ronald.
Yep,
So
Ronald's
Harold
car looks damaged. Yeah. Yeah, Ronald's car looks damaged, so I think that's why. Must have used his repair at some...
George is maintaining the just over 3 second gap to Tony.
For some reason, we've still got Lane and Johnny in the pits, so I don't know why they've not
No, you'd have thought they'd have taken their fast repair and just seen what they could do. Yeah, it's all laps for next week, but
Andrew Hoffman's trailing behind Gary Croft at the moment. Still got Gary Croft on my screen as 9th. So
yeah, and he's now showing us 1 lap down.
Ah, right, okay, that makes sense now.
It just took a while for the timing screen to catch up.
Okay.
Tony has just lost 5 seconds. I don't know if you want to have a look at that, Pete.
I'm trying to track it down now. Yeah, 1 lap ago. Ooh, 1 lap ago. He didn't do himself any favours coming out of the second to last turn. He actually spun his car, which is very uncharacteristic of Tony, and has bent his front end and lost a panel. And that's where that gap has occurred. So that was 1 lap ago.
Never good when you got a bent front end.
No, we struggle with it. So yeah, that's put him a long way behind. So it'll take a mistake from George now, I think, with, what's that, 5 minutes to go?
Yeah, be interesting to see whether the damage on Tony's car will help Greg out, maybe?
Yeah, Greg's going to have to pull some very fast lap times, though, in order to close that gap in 5.
Yeah, Tony's last lap was a 13.8 compared with his best of a 12.5, so I think that damage might be slowing him down. We'll have a look after this lap, see where he gets to. And we have Mr. Johnny Brandon and Mr. Lane O'Connor in the interview room that I'm going to drag both of them up. Mr. Brandon and Mr. O'Connor, welcome.
Evening.
What happened? I called it as your fault, just so that you don't watch the broadcast and then have a go at.
No, that's all right. Everyone's entitled to opinions.
From my point of view, Johnny, and you may see it different. I don't know if you've watched the replay yet. I always think that trying to put one on somebody through those S's is risky because the car understeers and things like that. And I think I said earlier in the broadcast, maybe you might look at it and think to yourself, "Oh, if I'd have just been patient, I would have done him into the bus stop."
Yeah, I didn't try and put one on him in the S's. He just slowed right down. I'd already broke just before it, and I just couldn't believe how slow he was. So we had the tap in there. I mean, turn 1, I went up the inside, and I thought he was off the track, and I was trying to be friendly, and then I got a wallop. I had to lift off and save the car. And then went up there, and he just slowed right down at the top of the hill. And like I say, I'd already broke because he was slowing, and then he just literally slowed right down. And I tapped him, and then I thought we were all right, and then someone else come steaming down the outside and wiped us all out. So I don't know who that was.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't see that. We did send Pete to investigate, but he's useless. I think the Ronald thing.
But I'm not going to name any names. So.
We see the contact into turn 1 because, on my screen anyway, the 2 cars merged and then came apart.
One come back off the track, onto the track, into the other. Yeah, okay, yeah, I get you.
And then I think Ronald was off of his usual line to go into the S's, and I think that's probably why Ronald was slow. But big crash.
I don't understand why he thought it so hard, to be honest, because I was being so patient, I was so much quicker, and just one of them. It's unfortunate. I'm not blameless. I should have backed off a bit more at the top of the hill. But like I said, he was so slow at the top of the hill. I'd already broke. If you go back to that and you look before, you can see me braking, going up the hill, because he was so slow, and then he slowed up even more. and I was actually just trying to avoid him because he was sort of understeering off, and yeah,
we'll
just
just
couldn't
blame
avoid it.
Tony.
Yeah, it was. It's one of them. It's one of them. For once, it's
And
not Tony's fault.
yeah, and Lane.
I'll find a way for it to be Tony's fault, but
Yeah,
at the
definitely.
moment I'm struggling.
I'll butcher some video evidence for you. Welcome to the booth, Lane.
All right, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, you was caught up in that accident. What did you see from your car?
Absolutely nothing. I thought I was getting away with it. I seen them off. It was all going up in the air. I saw it all happening, and as soon as it happened, I just saw a wee gap, and I thought, right, I'm going through there. I just tapped the brake and just nipped through, and I think Gary Croft was behind me. I think he was trying to follow me, and I got through, and I was actually shouting on the mic, "Yes, I'm through!" At the next minute, boom. So I don't know what happened, but it was quite funny. I blame Clyde Whiting myself, but hey ho.
Yeah, he's a bastard. He is.
Yeah, Lane, you got hit by a flying Ronald Moon's car because I was on board with you when the crash happened. You did a great job of getting through the first bit, but you weren't avoiding the flying.
Yeah. I really thought I'd got away with it. I really thought, yes, here we go. And it just went tits off it. But hey, oh, shit happens.
So, you guys are going to be starting up front for the third race. Johnny, I suppose. Yeah,
Even
you
though
will
we're
be.
so many laps back, I thought we
Yeah,
didn't want
laps down don't count in this series. It's the full reverse grid. Doesn't matter where you finish. How many laps down you are.
Good. I'll just put Johnny off at the first corner and go for it.
I don't really want to start at the front, to be honest, but
Well, you don't have to. I can put you to the back.
Go then, mate.
put me to the back if you want. The championship. I'm not in the championship, so.
Yeah, if that's what you want, I can do it. I did it for Greg for this race because he's having a few computer issues.
Hey, put me to the back. It's a bit boring if I start at the front. Put me to the back with the fast guys.
Not a problem. Right, so we are on the last lap, guys. Hope you enjoyed our little impromptu interview with the XVR guys there. They'll be back for race 3.
We're not bitter.
They're not bitter. They're not blaming Tony.
It was everybody else's fault that was involved except for mine. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, we heard that.
Everybody else.
George McClay has got a nearly 13-second lead over Tony Kloosterman, and he's just coming up to the last corner now. So well done, George. Another win for you. Tony Kloosterman will come home second, and Greg Branch, starting from the back, providing he doesn't make any mistakes, will come home in third.
Recognise that.
Do you want to watch the rest in pick?
Certainly can. So, hang on a minute. Harold Stadler is in fourth and looks set to take that as his finishing position. Andrew Hoffman in fifth. Great result for Andrew. Ronald Moons finishes sixth. All the other people that were involved in that crash are in the booth with me, but he's finishing sixth, so that's good. Rich Warmingham in seventh, also a victim of the crash. Eighth is Michael Frost, so he's done himself all right. I think he's the last of the finishers. No, he's not. We've got somebody finishing
Gary
ninth.
Croft will come home in ninth, but a lap down.
Yeah, that's where I've gone wrong. And then Lane O'Connor in 10th, many laps down. Johnny Brandon, the same amount of many laps down. And then Bill, who parked his car after, I think, the first couple of laps.
Yeah, he certainly did. We've got Bill 12 laps down. So yeah, don't quite know what happened to Bill there. But thanks to Johnny and Lane for popping into the booth. And you heard it here first. So Johnny wants to start from the back of the grid. So when I set up the session for the next race, that's what we'll do. So biggest surprise there for me, Pete, was up until Tony's mistake. He didn't seem to have anything for George. George was maintaining that 3-second gap quite easily. Perhaps Tony just pushed it a little bit too much, and that's why he spun.
Yeah, I'd agree with that assessment entirely. I think he's had tyres that were too hot, and he's come out of that corner and spun it. He didn't have an answer for George's speed in that one, but I don't remember him taking damage before that. Johnny's been very clear in saying that that happened because Ronald was going too slow up the hill. I think if he watches the replay enough times, he'll realise that there was more to it than that.
Yeah, I think I just heard Johnny apologising to Ronald in the session anyway. Again, I'll stick with my first comment. Unless you've got a car that turns 100% better than anybody else's, if you're on somebody through those S's, you really got to back off and try and do it down the back straight. I see where Johnny's coming from. Ronald was a lot slower because he was offline, but it's that risk and reward thing again, isn't it? It's sometimes you get away with that. It's a brilliant move, and you're up the road after Tony, and other times you're in the booth after 5 laps talking to us idiots.
Yeah, and my potentially controversial opinion is Tony had already made the move on Ronald, and Johnny was seeing Tony gap in that situation. And from being on the onboard, it looked like Johnny was trying to put his car through a gap that didn't exist after a lot of other little nudges and potential net codes, even. And it all ended in tears.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Pete. The margins are that narrow in this series, and obviously we see it in the main series that you just can't afford to let your rival, especially the closeness in talent between Tony and Johnny. You can't give your rival a second on you because you'll never get it back. So Johnny's gone for one of their moves, and on this occasion it didn't pay off, but. Hey ho, another race to go, another reverse grid. So join us all again in about 15 minutes. We will have the third and final race for this evening. Catch you all soon. And welcome back to the V8 ESC Sprint Series, round 18, third race of 3 for this evening from the Watkins Glen Cup configuration. So in race 2, we saw a big pile-up involving Johnny Brandon and a few others. And just to make Johnny feel better, I've looked at it again and found a way to blame Tony. So here it is. If Tony hadn't have overtaken Ronald, then Johnny would have been behind Tony and not Ronald, and therefore wouldn't have crashed into Ronald. So, Johnny, you was right all along. It was Tony's fault. Joining me in the booth is, again, Mr. Pete Bingham. Tony's fault, do you agree?
Without a doubt. When is it not? That's really funny. I can almost not commentate because I'm laughing too much. Yeah, obviously.
Okay, Pete's managed to mute himself somehow. So we have Mr. Sam Boozin doing the magic in the background. Third race, reverse grid again. Johnny asked to be put to the back of the grid, so that's what we've done. It's a sunset race, so car lights are on already. It's a tricky track right here when it gets dark, so let's hope the 20 minutes pile in and we get some darkness. Lane O'Connor on pole. Pete, if you're back, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, have you got me now, Clyde?
Yeah, I got you, mate.
Cool. I think we're going to end up in a similar situation to the last race, so it's going to be great for us to watch. We're going to lose the lights. Yeah, the revs.
And green.
Right then, one car towards the back, moving a bit slower.
Ooh,
that's not going to end well.
Loses it on the brakes. Oh, and he's taken George. He's flying. He's smoking.
He's wrecked.
He's going the wrong way. Take your fast repair, Andrew. There's not a lot.
Well, this will be great. We've now got Tony Clouston overtaking Ronald, and behind that, Johnny Brandon. So maybe my predictions are true. Oh, someone off track and they've taken out Tony nearly.
Johnny avoided it. Tony avoided it, I believe.
How did Tony avoid that? No, he didn't avoid it. He's got him. Someone's got to slow down from the bus stop. Who's that behind Tony? Harold?
Harold, I believe.
Johnny's about to pass Harold, so Tony and Johnny are in close proximity to one another. Still don't know who it was that lost it in the bus stop.
Yeah, I think Mike Frost sideways. And obviously the first one, I think Andrew Hoffman just got on the brakes a bit too hot.
Right.
He was on the outside of Ronald and there was a car on the inside of Ronald. And the carnage ensued.
Yeah, so on my screen, Tony doesn't have a bonnet, which would explain some stuff. He's zoning in on Rich Warmingham to the track to be. He's got in his slipstream, he's pulling alongside, and this is his deal almost done. He's out on the brakes on him, and he's turning into the...
And Rich moves out of the way and lets Johnny pass. Good teammate Chip. Just made that word up, I think.
Yeah, I think you did. That's not a real word.
That'll be in the dictionary next year.
He's left himself vulnerable to Harold, though, so Harold's now on his outside. I don't see... Well, I'll just take all of my next sentence back. He's got him turning into the right hand.
And in the meantime, Mr. Gary Croft disappears 4 seconds into the lead. And Tony's now pulling a move on Lane. I expect Lane will let Johnny go through as well. Hopefully not in the S's.
Yeah, not like last time round. Yeah, Harold's done Rich. Maybe Rich has got some damage because he didn't seem very fast. Ronald Moons trucking around behind them. He's going to succumb to George McClay, who I think got caught up in all those crashes before. And then Greg Branch.
Yeah, I expected Lane to let Johnny go in the bus stop then, but he didn't. And it seemed, I'm not sure, but it seemed as if Tony was down on top speed. May just have been the slipstream making it look worse.
He's got no bonnet, so he's going to lose some front end downforce. Oh, now he's let him go. So Johnny's past Lane. Lane let him go.
Gary Croft is now 6 seconds in front.
And that would suggest that Tony has got issues with his car. I don't think he's got top speed or front end downforce, so I think he's going to have to take it gingerly. We'll see how quickly Johnny ropes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If Johnny just cruises up to the back of him and then goes past, we'll know Tony's down on speed.
Yeah.
Well, that might have just been a glitch on the timing screen because it's saying 4.5, 5 seconds now, unless Gary's made a mistake.
Entirely possible, but it's a big gap in it. And Tony's last lap was a 1:11.9, and Gary's was a 1:11.4. So he is pulling away. Johnny's was a 1:12.5, but he was stuck behind Lane.
It'll be interesting to see what it is this time when they're both in clear air.
Yeah, so I'll walk us through this. So Gary Croft crosses the line. 1:11 point. Tony. 1:11.4. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Tony is down on speed. They've all lapped within 300ths of a second there.
I would agree with that. I think Gary's doing a great job out front.
Harold looks like he's right on the back of Lane.
Johnny Brandon's not roping in Tony at any point, is he? Oh, hang on. Yeah, Lane and Harold. Need to get a room if you get any closer than that.
Yeah, just watching that battle at the moment. And Harold's a good driver. He's a patient driver. I don't think you'll see him force the issue. He'll either put enough pressure on Lane for Lane to make a mistake, or just manage to position his car exactly where he needs it to be to get past him.
Yeah, I got a lot of time for Harold. He doesn't do anything stupid, or I'm not seeing him do anything stupid anyway. Quite like sharing the bits of the track with him that I do, but usually he's like 10 seconds ahead of me down the track somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think Harold's close enough going into the bus stop to do anything about it this lap. Lane had a little twitch on the way in. Harold's got a far better exit.
Yeah, and
I think he's going to get up the side of him.
Yeah, that's a deal done, isn't it?
Yeah, done and dusted. Oh, I don't know. Lane's fighting back. And he's got Lane. That side line. Who's going to break latest?
Don't know, he's going to throw his kilt over his windscreen though.
It's done deal now.
It is now, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, hello.
But just seen Lane appear like a bloody tomahawk missile out of nowhere then.
Yeah. Oh, no, unfortunately, he's lost out to Rich Birmingham there. We'll have to see if Rich can keep that. Just bringing your attention a little bit forward to the Tony and Johnny situation. Not that it's the Tony and Johnny show by any means, but Johnny's caught up with Tony now. Did he really? That's very interesting.
Yeah, and Gary's maintaining that gap at the front, and if Tony's having to defend from Johnny, that'll play right into Gary's hand.
Certainly will, and he's obviously going to lose out if he's not got a bonnet, because every part of this car provides you with some element of downforce somewhere along the line. So
it's just extra cooling.
yeah,
There's a good battle brewing here because Harold is not really pulling away from Rich. Rich isn't pulling away from Lane, and George is catching all three of them.
yeah, I didn't see George kind of tapping on the back door, but he is, isn't he? He's roping him in, and 1:11.7's not a shabby time by anybody's. And is faster than the 3 cars in front of him. So Johnny's dropped off the back of Tony for a reason.
Oh, George has just scraped the fence coming out of the S's onto the back straight.
That won't bother
Obviously,
him
as
too
the
much.
sky's getting darker, the sparks were awesome.
I'll have to watch that one on a replay, I think. So Tony has pulled out a 1:11.2 for no reason whatsoever. And is making no inroads to Gary whatsoever.
Now, Gary's still over 4 seconds in the lead. I think the only thing that'll stop Gary now is if he starts daydreaming about sheep.
Well, if he's pushing it too much, his tyres will start giving out on him, so that might become a factor in the next half of the race, because we're about halfway through now.
Yeah, Gary's quite a calculated driver, though.
Oh, Johnny, what are you doing? Oh, Johnny. That's not good,
he's in the
mate.
middle of the track smoking. What happened there, Pete?
He lost all traction coming out of turn 1. He's another victim of turn 1. Just let me rewind my own screen back to where that happened.
I'm guessing it was Tony's fault.
Without a doubt, without Tony's car being in front of him, he wouldn't have crashed, etc. He got one tyre on the grass, believe it or not, hit the outside Armco barrier, and then smashed his car to bits on the inside. Love to say I'd not crashed at that point, but I've crashed pretty much everywhere on every track I own, so.
Yeah, I don't think there's a fence here that I haven't bent. So yeah, just going back to Gary, he's cool, calm, and calculated. I'm fairly sure that he's not wringing the neck of the car. He's just doing a bit of gap management.
A 1:11.5 is pretty quick round here, mind.
So George is right on the back of Lane now.
Who's right on the back of
Who's
Rich.
on the back of Rich, and Harold has got a little bit of a gap there. Oh, George was so close to that fence again.
Yeah, he's pushing. Greg
Lane's having to go at Rich. And he's got it done. Great move. I think George was impressed because he nearly lost it.
On my screen, I've got Lane behind Rich.
No, Lane's just done him into the bus stop.
Oh, no, yes, sorry.
I like Lane. Very, very funny guy. We do have quite a bit of banter on Facebook together, so I like to see Lane do.
So you're not biased at all, no?
No.
So we've got Gary doing 1:11.5 at the front. Tony's best effort that time around was, let's call it a 1:11.7. So that's not reducing in any way. Harold behind him is doing...
has got any damage. He's now going to get done by George. He got very, very loose coming out of the S's.
I can have a look at if he's had any damage. Give me a minute.
It may just be an overheat in the tyre. Oh, Lane!
Oh, what are you doing?
Well
Oh,
helped,
dear.
sir.
Rich Warmingham touched the wall.
What does Chaz call him?
What do you mean?
Dick Cooling Beef.
Oh, yeah, he does, yeah. Yeah, they both do the same thing. If you manage to watch the replay, two teammates do exactly the same fishtailing out of that bus stop turn. Well, Lane gets away with it better than Rich Warmingham does. That's for certain.
Yeah, Rich is in the pits.
Yeah,
I don't know if
he
he
hits
towed
it.
back.
No, he hits it pretty hard. Yeah, I'm just getting back there myself. Tell me when you're ready to play it.
So to me, I think Mr. Hoffman was on the brakes too hard and got sideways into Ronald, which then caused the accident with George, and then Andrew went on a magical mystery tour up in the air.
I agree with everything you've just said for the second time tonight.
People are going to start thinking we like each other at this
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah, that's never going to happen.
So, can Tony do anything about Gary? I'm not sure, unless Gary makes a mistake. The gap seems to be hovering around the 4-second mark. So, hopefully Gary is doing some gap management, although it's getting very dark very quickly.
It is. The sun's setting very fast. And I don't think Tony's that bothered about closing that gap. I think he knows he can't do it in the next 3.5 minutes or whatever's left of the race. And his major threat to the title is out of the race.
Yeah, although Tony's, I don't think. So I think I said it in the last week. I don't think Tony ever gets the white flag out and surrenders. I think Tony will push on the off chance that Gary makes a mistake.
Well, Harold's going to end up with a nice, tidy third position, providing George McClay doesn't lap any faster than he is. He's got damage, hasn't he? Because he was caught up in something a bit earlier.
Yeah, and Lane is staying with George, so
I don't think he's staying with him. He's lapping faster than him.
yeah, Lane might just throw one up the inside somewhere.
I would think so. He's not shy, is he?
He's certainly not. No.
Harold showing that he's a good, steady, safe, fast driver again.
I do love the flames coming out of the exhaust that you get when it starts to get dark.
Yeah, the night races are very atmospheric, aren't they? Even on a simulator. Have I missed a page, or should I know why Rich Warmingham's in the pit? Oh,
yeah,
he
crashed.
hit the wall out the bus
You
stop.
talked us through it, Pete. Remember? So, breaking news: Mr. Pete Bingham has a senior moment live on air.
Further breaking news: Pete Bingham doesn't really care. He has them every day at work.
However, we do believe it was Tony's fault.
I'm sure I heard sliding tyres just then, but maybe that's another senior moment.
I think George has probably got the measure on Lane here, unless Lane tries something kamikaze-like.
Yeah, George is a very competent driver, and he's not that well. He's as likely to make a mistake as anybody else in his caliber of driver, i.e., not me or you.
Yeah, again, George is a lovely lad. When he sets his sights on doing well in something, there probably isn't anybody, or maybe Tony, that does as much practice as George does. He's in every practice session that goes up, and he's always at the top of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen George in loads of practice sessions, far more than I am, and that shows in my results. He's lapping ever so slightly faster than Lane at the moment, who are both lapping ever so slightly faster than Greg.
Yeah, Lane seems to take time off of him coming into the bus stop. I don't know whether that's just later braking or better set up for the reverse direction. And then George seems to pull it out again through the rest of the lap.
Yeah, I think it's what I was describing earlier between Tony and Johnny Brandon. I think there's good bits and bad bits around the track for each person. Although saying that, Lane has done a lap 3/10 faster than George on that one, so he's pulling him in a bit. He's dropped off in the first couple of turns, but
I believe we may be on the last lap as well.
yeah, I think you're right.
So Gary Croft, healthy lead. He's going around the carousel at the moment. 2 more turns, Gary. Put sheep out of your head. 1 more turn. Straighten the car up. Get your foot down. Well done, Gary Croft. Takes the race 3 win tonight.
Yeah, well done, Gary. Spot on.
Tony Kluseman in second.
All right, I'll let you.
Harold Stadler comes across the line in third. George McClay fourth and Lane O'Connor fifth. A little gap now while we wait for Greg Branch, who comes across in sixth. Ronald Moons crosses the line in seventh, and we just wait for our last runner, Mike Frost, to cross the line in eighth, with Rich Warmingham ninth and in the pits, Johnny Brandon 10th and in the pits, and Andrew Hoffman 11th and in the pits. So, bit of action again there, Pete. Again, involving Johnny's car ended up smoking in the middle of the track. Obviously, Tony's fault. Andrew Hoffman with his accident at the start. So, few talking points from that race.
Oh, without a doubt. Where do you begin? So, Johnny's lost control of his vehicle coming out of turn one. A few other drivers have done that in the races preceding this one, and he's ended up breaking his car to a point where he couldn't continue, and that's going to hurt his championship chances more than anything else, I would think.
Yeah, and obviously that all played into the hands of Steady Eddie, Mr. Gary Croft. Whilst everybody was squabbling at the start, Gary got into the lead and pulled a nice 4-second gap on the rest of the field. Once they'd sorted themselves out, had their accidents. Tony had a 4-second gap to catch Gary. With a damaged car, although it didn't seem to slow him down going by his lap times. But, even at the end, Gary still had a 2.5-second gap. So, hats off to Gary. Controlled that race really from the start to the end.
Yeah, very mature drive. He didn't feel phased by his teammate Tony on the timing screens behind him. Harold Stadler, very, very calm drive to come in third. George, I'm sure he would have wanted to be first. Why wouldn't you? And Lane would have wanted to overtake George, but that's your top five. It was a really good race. It was full of events. Johnny's ended up not scoring very well as a result of turn one. Rich warming him out as well. Andrew Hoffman did great in the second race, not so much in the third.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say there. What a horrible evening we've had. In the interview room, we have Mr. Tony Kloosterman waiting for us. So I'll drag Tony in. Tony, you had a, shall we say, interesting evening.
Was it?
Well, we obviously the crash that Johnny had in race 2 was your fault. We've worked that one out. And then there was a few. Well, see, this is what we've worked out. You overtook Ronald, and then Johnny crashed into Ronald. If you hadn't have overtaken Ronald, Johnny would have been behind you and therefore wouldn't have crashed into Ronald. Therefore, it's your fault.
I can see that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a nasty accident. I don't know how much you saw of it in your mirrors, but in all seriousness, I think we had a little chat with Johnny earlier that Johnny and Ronald had a coming together in turn 1. Ronald was offline going into the S's, which made him slow. Johnny was quicker, tried to sort of, outturn him, and they ended up coming together. And, obviously that all happened in your mirrors.
Yeah, I watched the replay afterwards just to get an understanding of what happened there. So, anyways, I know what it looked like in my mind.
Yeah. And just race 3, we was just saying, how well Gary had driven that race. And you couldn't seem to close the gap on him. He got a 4-second lead from the start, whilst you guys were squabbling over positions. And then when you got yourself into second, you didn't seem to be able to close the gap. Pete said it looked like you had your bonnet missing on your car, so I don't know whether you clipped that accident that did happen, but it didn't seem to affect your lap times.
Yeah, the first lap at the bus stop, I don't know who it was, spun in front of me, and I touched the back of their car, and that probably did a little bit of damage. But Gary drove an exceptional race. We were on 2 completely different setups, trying something for next weekend. So obviously his setup was a little bit quicker. Either that or he's a damn good driver.
We said he drove a faultless race. And just going back to race 1. I know I've done this about cock about face, but Johnny in front, you behind him. Pete was saying that there was places on the track, especially into the bus stop, where you was closing right in on Johnny, and then other places where Johnny was going away from you. Was it just a case of you just didn't have that extra that extra bit to get past him, or you couldn't get close enough to him out of the S's to fully utilise the drag down the straight?
Yeah, into the bus stop I was quicker, but I had to be mindful that I didn't go into the back of a car that was in front of me, so I was a little bit cautious there. And then he was stronger in the downhill right after that, and then I seemed to catch up a little bit again. But quite honestly, I think we were very, very evenly matched throughout the race, and neither car was really stronger, and not enough to pass the other.
Yeah, we certainly agree with that. Well, thanks for coming in for an interview, Tony. We love the paint scheme, although we have renamed you Tony Trickle. Anybody you'd like to thank before we let you?
I just wanted to ask if you caught my spin in race 2.
Oh,
Yes,
I made
Pete
sure
did.
that was on there. What happened there? Did you just unload or get
Yeah,
too much on the gas?
on the curb and got a little bit of grass or something, and away she went. That was very fortunate.
You weren't escaping me on that one, mate.
Yeah, it was entertaining, I guess, on the broadcast. Thanks for broadcasting the event, guys. Thanks to Racetech for sponsoring the main series, and Never Quit Racing Simability. Gary did an exceptional job on working on some setups, so we know what direction to go into for next weekend. And we'll see you next week.
Yep, thanks for dropping in, Tony. And as you say, we'll see you next Saturday for the main event. So,
Yeah,
Pete,
thank-
what I'll do now is I will grab our race 3 winner and let you have a chat with
Hello, Gary.
him.
How you
Once
doing?
I've muted him, hang on.
Oh, hang on.
There we go.
Hello, Gary. How
Hello.
you doing?
I'm great. Hi, guys.
Excellent stuff. So, race winner for race 3. You managed your gap to Tony very, very well. Did you feel under pressure in that last race at all?
Well, only when I said, look, I'm finding it hard to see towards the end of the race. He says, hold up, I can give you some more light.
That's a great response. Thanks for that. So, talk us through how you actually ended up at the front of that field in race 3, and any events that really stood out for you in the previous 2 races to that as well.
Well, it was a shame, the race 2. It was a shame that multiple car pile up there. I think some of us could have done better there, and that spoiled what was going to be a good race, I think. So I had to tow back to the pits, and the net result is I guess I get pole position for the last race. So that helped. But anyway, really happy. That's my first win in the league, so that's a monkey off my back.
Yeah, congratulations for that. I'd love to know what that felt like, but unfortunately,
Never
I
gonna
don't. I
happen.
just. Thanks for that, Glen. Real positivity from your teammate there. So, any other people you want to have a shout out to? Racetech potentially.
Well, Racetech first and foremost. It's wonderful to have the Kiwi company supporting and sponsoring the series. Shout out to Never Quit Racing. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this team. That's made a big difference to me, camaraderie and the egos. There's no egos in there, so really enjoying that. And to you guys taking on the broadcast, thank you very much. That's
okay. You had a really, really mature drive, in my opinion. Everything seemed to work very smoothly for you in the last one. What's it like when you're at the front of the race? Are you looking over your shoulder and thinking about the time to Tony? It's your teammate, obviously, or a teammate. So what's going through your mind?
No, I think the best plan from my experience in the real world racing, I guess, is to not look at that gap behind you, to try and keep your eyes forward. I really just focused on no mistakes because I've let myself down in the past there. So big focus for me at the moment, and I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, perfect. That's what everybody wants to do, isn't it? Be able to ignore the person behind them. Thank you very much, Gary. Congratulations on winning the last race. Clyde, are you going to bring in Lane?
I certainly will. Just well done, Gary. Fantastic drive. Like you say, first win in the series and fully deserved, mate. So let's hope you can carry that on to next week.
Cheers, Clyde. Thanks.
Okay, so back with us again for more punishment is Mr. Lane O'Connor. Obviously, we spoke to you earlier on, Lane. Race 3 was interesting for you. There was a hell of a lot going on around your car.
Yeah, evening, gents. Aye, there was. It was actually a comedy error. It was a mixture between really cold tyres that surprised me. The tyres did not act like they did in the first race. It was unbelievable. It took me 3 laps to get them to stick, and I had Rich coming up behind me, and he was a good 6, 7 tenths quicker than me. And I thought, right, I'll let you through in the chicane, Rich, but I don't want to lift off too much, so I let him through, and he overshot. Got to slow down.
Yeah, I saw that. That was fun.
we see that one, and that's I think that's where George managed to catch you a little bit, and then obviously later on in that race, you seemed to be quicker than Rich, because I remember watching you put one on him in the bus stop, I believe it was, or going into the bus stop.
Yeah, I think he might have had a bit of damage by that time. No, aye, the first time I went for him, it was more just a push him on type of thing, because I knew he was quicker than me, and I was trying to push him on a bit. But when I did go for it, I think he might have had a bit of damage or some sort of damage at that point, because normally he'd be a bit quicker than me.
Yeah, like I say, you see everything that that happened seemed to be happening around your car. I think there was one I remember with, I don't know if it was George or Harold. It was one of those guys where they actually overtook you, and you disappeared out of my field of view, and then you come flying back in like an Exocet missile. I was nearly wetting myself on the broadcast. That was brilliant.
Oh yeah, the last turn. Well, no, it wasn't in the last turn. I know what you're on about.
Last turn, I believe.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to do was let him through, but not make it too easy. And he kind of had the elbows out a bit, and I thought, wait a minute. So I floored it again.
Yeah, that was very, very good to watch. Some really good racing tonight. Before we let you go, Lane, anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, obviously yourselves, Racetech, XVR, other guys, the rest of the guys, anybody that knows me. Hello, Mum.
Excellent. Okay then, Lane. Well, hopefully, will we see you next Saturday for the main event?
Yeah, definitely. I've been off the last 3 weeks. I actually found alcohol again. I haven't drunk alcohol for 2 years, and I found it again. So it kind of put me off for 2 or 3 weeks there.
Oh no, I find that helps with the driving.
Yeah, me too, funnily enough.
Yeah, I think I might just keep going with it then.
Okay, right. Well, we'll let you go because we need to wrap this broadcast up, and we'll catch you next Saturday for the main event. And congratulations on your results tonight.
Yeah, cheers, guys. See you later.
Well done, Lane. Cheers, mate.
Oh, couldn't get rid of him then. Right. So, again, I think the racing was different to what I thought it was going to be tonight. I thought there was going to be plenty of overtaking because of the overtaking opportunities on this track, but I think the closeness of the field sort of nullified that. What do you think, Pete?
I was also surprised in that this is a track that promotes overtaking in very particular places and promotes not overtaking in places like the carousel. There is one speed through that carousel. You can get under someone and you can put them off and you can push them out wide, and you can get your place that way. And I was surprised by the fact that the comings together were in places I wouldn't expect them to be. So up the hill, out of the S-bend at the start of the lap, they took each other out. Did it take away from the rest of the race? It probably did, if I'm being honest. And yeah, I expected more close racing as a result of such a fast track with such a slipstream event going down that back straight towards the bus stop, the entrance to the bus stop, the exit of that down into the carousel. I thought it'd be a much more eventful time, and the crashes that happened in places I didn't expect.
Well, a yes or no would have done, to be honest. But
Then, what was the question?
so hopefully, yeah, we've had 12 cars on the grid tonight, and we've had accidents. We had obviously I was away for VIR, but there was a fairly small grid for that. So hopefully, being a popular track, we're going to be back to a 30-car grid next week. So if we can have accidents with 12 cars on the grid, have we got a recipe for disaster next week?
I wouldn't write it off. But the rules are a bit different, aren't they, in terms of using the Wheel of Fortune in order to find out how many people we reverse. If we end up with a 30-car league, then brilliant for a start. But I think it'll be a more interesting broadcast, because I think the rules that I expected to see in this race will be a reality in a full grid sprint race to start and a feature race after that.
No, it's three super sprints.
Oh, it's the super sprints, is it? Oh dear, I've just
I believe
horrendously.
I should know, but
As soon as you organise the league, why would you not know? So if we're going to repeat this with more cars, that'll be it'd be chaos.
Yeah, it is 3 super sprints, so could be interesting. Sam, any final thoughts from you? We'll let you have a speaking part tonight.
Thank you, Glen.
That's good enough.
Okay. See you next time.
What do you think for next week, Sam? Do you think we've got a recipe for carnage? Do you think we're going to do the podcast on Sunday? Do you reckon we're going to have some fighting talk in the podcast and things like that?
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot of discussion in the podcast. Yes. With the 3 sprint races, super sprints, it's gonna be hard on the second and third one, as always, I think. But yeah, the racing standards are pretty high in the series, so hopefully we'll have 3 clean races. We'll see.
Yeah, and we'll see if we can talk Mr. Hoffman into winding some front brake bias on as well for turn 1. So, Pete, before we close, any final words of wisdom from yourself?
I don't really run with wisdom. It doesn't tend to see itself out at the end of it. All I would say is tune in next week for the chaos that will ensue in the second race as we make our way around Watkins Glen for another.
I think Pete's got a dodgy button. So, just up to me to close now. Obviously, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with Pete and Sam again. So thanks to you guys. Thanks to Racetech for our series sponsor. Thank you to the drivers that turned up. Thank you to our viewers that watched us live. For those that are watching this back tomorrow or even later on tonight, if I've upset you, that was all Pete's fault. He was giving me cue cards.
Absolutely.
And I echo what Pete says. Tune in next week for the main event, 3 super sprint races from Watkins Glen Cup. We'll be live on Apex Racing TV. Tune in. You don't want to miss it. And good night to everybody.
Good night.